Hello and welcome back everybody. Today we're going to do Marvel Revol's proposed minimum requirement, which consists of i5 6600K, Ryzen 5 1600X, 16GB of RAM, GTX 1060 or AMD RX 580 or Intel Arc 380, 70GB of storage, and recommend to have SSD for better experience. So I guess maybe HDD is still valid for this game. Welcome to Response PC. I'm Dunk. Let's game on. Starting off the testing gameplay, we have the Ryzen 5 1600 non-X variant because I don't have it, and the Radeon RX 580X because I don't have the non-X variant, and 16GB of memory. We're going to go with the default 1080p, low settings, in this case FSR quality enabled, and that gives us an average of 47 FPS. This is quite nice for this kind of game. It would have been better at 60 FPS for a shooter, but still playable. GPU is maxed out at 100%, using 4.2GB of VRAM out of 8. CPU wise, we are in the mid 40% of utilization, and for the RAM, we are at 14.1GB of RAM. This is almost a bottleneck out of our 16GB of RAM. But the frame time is quite smooth, the gameplay is smooth, so I won't complain. I was more hoping to get 60 FPS though. Next up, I have the Intel i5 6500 because I don't have the i5 6600K, but both are 4-core 4-thread. But the 6600K is 3.5 GHz and the 6500 is 3.2. So on paper, the 6600K is about 14% more performance than the 65. And pair with that, I have the AVGA GTX 1060 6GB variant. It's my guess because they didn't say it was the 3 or the 6GB variant, but since they promote the RX 580, which is at 8GB, that was my guess. The default again, it will be at 1080p, low settings, and this time it chose TSR Epic instead of FSR. And there's no DLSS because this is not a RTX. We get an average of 51 FPS, just a little bit over the RX 580X, but it's a bit more stuttier. The frame time graph is also showing a lot of spike. The GPU is not even pegged at 100%. It's hovering in the low 80s to the high 70s, using 4.8GB of VRAM out of 6. I think my 14% on the CPU again with the 6600K will have been what is missing, because my 6500 is, I'm pretty sure, bottleneck, because we are in the mid 70 to low 80% of utilization. For the RAM, we only at 13.3, so we still have enough room there. I think our CPU is a little bit bottlenecked here. Probably the 6600K will give you a little uplift in performance and not making you any stutter. Next up, it was supposed to be the Ryzen 5 1600 with the A380 because I need a resizable bar, but the game didn't want to launch at all. I mean, when launching the game, I reached the splash screen and the game just crashed, then asking to send a report. So I don't have any testing with the Intel Arc A380. The game didn't launch to get me any gameplay. Anyway, I wanted to test again the GTX 1060 6GB variant with the Ryzen 5 1600 because I remember the CPU was not a bottleneck with the RX 580. Using the same settings, 1080p, low settings, TSR Epic, we now get an average of 62 FPS, and we went as high as 89 FPS. The frame time graph is also super smooth, a straight line, no spike anywhere. So I guess the i5 6500 was a bottleneck. Probably the 6600K, probably also some bottleneck because it's only a 4-core 4-thread. And I know we're not on the same map, but this time the GPU is pegged at 99% of utilization, using 3.8GB of VRAM. The CPU is the mid 50 to 60% of utilization and using 12.6GB of RAM. We're not bottlenecked by the CPU. The GPU is running like a free chicken. I'm a bit sad that my A380 wasn't able to launch the game, so I guess this will be for the Marvel Rivals on Arc GPU or on the real minimum requirements. Let's see how it goes. On that note, thanks for watching, see you on the next one, and subscribe.